My stepmother we were fighting, and she said, "You'll see what this is like when you have kids." And I said, "I'm never having kids." And she said, "Yes, you will. You don't know what you want. You'll change your mind. You'll see." You know, what doesn't occur to people is that a 5-year-old could walk up to a grown-up and say, "I can't wait to be a mommy when I grow up." And they will never say, "You'll change your mind." If a little 5-year-old girl comes up and says, "I don't want kids," she's loony, or she's too young. She can't possibly know her mind.
Did she think she made a point there? That's not a point. It's a 5-year-old. Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Christine Grace, and today is another reaction video. We all know full well by now that, at least here in the UK, 50.1% of women will be single and childless by the year 2030. We know that in the UK and many other countries, the replacement level is significantly going down. And yeah, childlessness is becoming a real problem in terms of the continuation of our species, at least in certain countries. Obviously, I'm aware that there's exceptions to the rule in places like Nigeria. The replacement rate is booming, but an issue for us here in the West nonetheless. So yeah, today I'm going to be reacting to a video discussing said issue. I think specifically we're going to be looking at some of the women who've actually made the individual choice to say, "I'm never going to have children." So yeah, let's take a look at it together.
I love to play with children. I think children are brilliant. I think they have so much to teach adults. So I appreciate them for that. I just won't be having my own.
The world perceives child-free women in the most negative light possible.
I think it's not a need for women anymore. We don't
22 and you've already made that decision.
need to have children. We find that our own happiness is more important, our own mental health is more important.
Oh no, we're like not even 30 seconds in and I'm already devastated.
We have been called selfish. We've been called narcissists, which is kind of strange. I do have a coworker.
Is it kind of strange? What is a narcissist? A narcissist is someone that is completely self-involved, completely self-centered and self-absorbed. And we just heard from the last lady that children aren't a need anymore and women care more about their own feelings now. Isn't being a mother one of the most selfless acts you can do? You know, to raise a child, to give your all to raising a competent, healthy adult. I don't think it's odd that these women have been called narcissists. If the reason that you don't want children is to fulfill some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy or purely based on your own desires, that's pretty self-involved. A lot of women I hear who say don't want children say they don't want children because children are these endless pits of need, right? And people would rather keep their energy for themselves than pour it into something else, which is quite selfish. And that's okay, because I think ultimately if you are like that, you probably shouldn't have kids because you're not going to have the capacity to be able to pour your love and energy into the child anyway. But to say then, I don't know how we're called narcissists, that's where it gets concerning, because it's like you don't get to be something then put on a mask and say that you're not that something, if that makes sense.
Worker who recently had a baby. All of my other coworkers were like ogling over him and making silly faces, and I'm just like typing away on my computer.
When it comes to when I knew that I didn't want to have children, it's hard to say only because I don't remember ever feeling like I did. I don't know what the feeling is like to want to have children. You know, when I'm in groups and there are persons talking about wanting children, I don't know how to respond.
In middle school, one of my friends, she said she never had the desire to have kids, and she said that and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was an option. And when she said that, I was like, I don't know if I want to have kids either.
What really sealed the deal for me was my time as a teacher and my time as a nanny. I remember feeling two different ways about my students. One was that I wanted to adopt them all and keep them and take care of them and love them and nurture them. And then the other part of me was like, oh my gosh, this is all day, every day. And that's when the first seeds of maybe this isn't for me started to spring up.
I knew for sure that having kids was not what I wanted to do because of my gut instinctive reaction, which was kind of like illness, kind of like a tunnel that just shot out in front of me and looked very...
This is all very, very interesting because it at least raises the question in my mind. What's causing these feelings? Now, I'm aware it could be a component of things, but I would like to see if there was a trend across all of these women. Is it more personal, individual temperament, perhaps things like personality, maybe even childhood trauma, we don't know. Or is the general trend perhaps on a societal level the way motherhood is portrayed? Obviously, so far we've heard very individual experiences, but if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I am fascinated by psychology, and I do tend to go off onto a tangent to psychoanalyze everything. But it would just be really, really interesting if all of these ladies have at least the self-awareness to do so, to be able to discern a trend between all of this. And what is it? Is it some kind of childhood event? Is it some kind of societal thing that we've created, perhaps a stigma around having children? Or is it simply down to some kind of difference in personality? So yeah, it's really interesting to hear these women talk about it. I personally don't have the same feelings as them. But that's not to say that there wasn't a point where I didn't. I remember when I was a young teenager, sort of 13 to 14, when my family would ask me, when you're older, do you want to get married and have children? I was sort of unsure. Like, I don't know. You're just a child. You don't really know. The world's all very new and exciting. And obviously when you're young, the world's your oyster. But I definitely think that's because of society and things I was seeing in the media and in society. And I was kind of like, oh, look, I have all these other options. And motherhood almost gets portrayed in a kind of boring way. But then obviously as I got older, I think around the age of 18 is when things really shifted for me, especially because once you turn 18, you become, at least in the UK, you're an adult at 18. You have the right to vote, you have all of the basic adult rights when you turn 18. So when I became 18, it was very much, if I was to become pregnant and be blessed with a child, is that something I would enjoy? And yeah, my feelings just sort of changed on it. So it's interesting to see these women who are much older, who still have that lack of desire to want to be a mother. And I'm not shaming them for that whatsoever. I definitely think if you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't, because then ultimately the child's only going to suffer because of that, aren't they? But it's just interesting for me because not knowing if I wanted children or not having the desire to have children for me really only lasted as an adolescent for me. As soon as I became an adult, it just became evidently obvious to me that that would be a really rewarding thing and a good thing to do, and it would fulfill something in me, at least on a personal emotional level, but also it became aware to me that it was a good thing to do for society as well, and that people are great, so more people is a good thing. It's my personal experience.
Very dark.
I find it very interesting that a lot of the people who do give me pushback on not wanting to have kids are women. If you are a woman and you don't understand why somebody else doesn't want to have kids, learn about it, ask about it. Don't immediately shut them down or think that they're heartless. I don't
think women who don't want to have children are heartless. I'm just intrigued to know why they don't want to, because obviously it is a biological drive to want to have children. It is programmed within us. So for that biological drive to not be present, that intrigues me. I find it interesting. I don't think it's about necessarily shaming them, but I would like to come to a conclusion for what the reasoning is, because I think if it is something that's on a societal level and there is something that can be done about it, because I believe that having children is such a wonderful thing and that it's good for individuals and good for society, I would love for us to be able to talk about it and figure out why in some people that desire isn't there. Again, there's nuance to everything. If that desire isn't there, you absolutely shouldn't feel pressured to have children, because if you feel pressured to have children and you ultimately don't want them, as I said previously, it's only the child that's going to suffer because of that.
think that I'm a heartless person.
Hands down, responses from women are way worse. With men, it's more like a curiosity, oh, how did you come to this decision? Women see it as an invitation to convince me otherwise. It's, oh, not right now, but you want some in the future. What are you gonna do when you're old and you're alone? Whatever I want, that's what I'll do.
Regret is another threat also. You'll regret it when you get older. The thing about regret is you don't regret not doing what you don't want to do.
My parents know I don't want kids. They've known pretty much my whole life. I've kind of prepped them already.
This is the 22-year-old. This will be the most interesting one, I think, especially with the way she's already talking my whole life when it's not been that long. It would be interesting to see if she's aware of the fact that she still has a lot of time for her personality and preferences to change. As for the women over 30, I think they're probably pretty stuck in their convictions, and that's fine because chances are, on the balance of probability, the chances of them conceiving are obviously a lot lower. Not impossible, but a lot lower. So it'd be interesting with this individual to see what she says. Because it's fine for her to say, I have no desire currently to have children, but I think it would be ignorant of her to suggest that she's going to know herself in 5-10 years, especially when you're as young as, I'm 23, when you're as young as we are. It would be ignorant for me or anyone my age to go, I know exactly what I'm going to want in 5 years. because no, you don't. I think 5 years ago when I was 18, you know, you're changing so much when you're young.
Be like, don't ask because you know the answer.
In terms of pressure from my family, I don't get it quite so much from my parents, but I do get it from my grandmother. Pressure to marry somebody Jewish so that I could raise Jewish kids. I understand that she's like where she's coming from, and like I know she just wants the best for me, but at the end of the day, I always end the conversation saying it's my decision, it's my life.
I identify as Afro-Latina. My father is from the Dominican Republic. He has African roots. My mother is from Puerto Rico. So when I think about, you know, if I were raising a child in this world, a black child in this world, you can't control how other people perceive them.
My mother was bent on me having kids. Oh, they would be so perfect. But I've spoken to them and I've started saying I'm pushing 40 and my time is up. And I've been saying that since I was
Based. She's self-aware.
35. I'm now 36. But it seems to work.
My stepmother we were fighting, and she said, you'll see what this is like when you have kids. And I said, I'm never having kids. And she said, yes, you will. You don't know what you want. You'll change your mind. You'll see. You know, what doesn't occur to people is that a 5-year-old could walk up to a grown-up and say, I can't wait to be a mommy when I grow up. And they will never say you'll change your mind. But if a little 5-year-old girl comes up and says, I don't want kids, she's loony, or she's, you know, she's too young. She can't possibly know her mind.
Did she think she made a point there? That's not a point. It's a 5-year-old.
Guys in my past have been like, oh, she'll make a great mom. This is perfect. It's been important to find someone who is interested in and cares about me for me and not what I can produce for him.
Like I have Tinder and like I'll see guys on there that are like maybe 10 years older than me and they're like looking to start a family. I'm like, that's probably the worst thing you could put in your bio because that's making every woman run away. I mean, at least that's how I see it.
Nowadays, dating in New York City is really tough, and I don't go on more than like 3 or 4 dates with somebody. Not on purpose, just because, you know, dating sucks, but it hasn't come up. It hasn't become a deal breaker up to this point.
My partner and I were very serious in our relationship. Once we moved and bought a home, he and I had a discussion about whether we wanted children, and both of us agreed that we don't. I think he just agreed with my decision not to, more so than anything, because he respects whatever I decide to do with my body, so.
That's concerning. She's just stated that even in her mind, she thinks her husband is only conforming to what she wants. Now, as I've said, absolutely, if you don't want children, you shouldn't have to have children. But it's concerning, at least for the guy and for the relationship, because if he is just conforming to her will currently, should he be deprived of children for a lifetime? I don't know. We can't hear him. We can't hear his side of the story. But just that statement, you know, she seems to be at the center of that relationship rather than it being a joint decision, which is concerning. If it was a purely joint decision and she said something along the lines of, my partner communicated to me that he's never had a desire to have children and doesn't want any children. Fine, great. You guys definitely should not have kids. If you both agree you don't want children, please don't have children. Again, because the children will suffer because of that, because you'll ultimately end up resenting them. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? That particular statement raised a few alarm bells for me.
There are lots of other things that make a woman a woman. Caring and nurturing. I love teaching and the passing on.
True, but let's not forget that all of these characteristics and traits are there for the sake of being able to raise children. Not to suggest that a woman needs to have children for those traits to be present, but biologically, evolutionarily, that is why they are there.
Kind of like traditions and culture and knowledge, all that stuff that goes with being a woman. But I don't have to have a child to do that.
Why can't women have that independence? Why can't women have all these careers or have these passions that are unhindered by any sort of extra responsibility placed on them?
There's something about women who don't want kids that is, in a way, threatening in the same way a happily single woman is threatening.
You want to have kids? That's fine. I need you to respect my life choice not to have kids. It's a two-way street.
And women aren't allowed to necessarily make decisions in a very confident way. You're supposed to just follow a script. And I think because women who have chosen to be childless aren't following that script, it makes people really uncomfortable.
There's no one way to be a woman. We all just want the best for ourselves, so let's all accept that.
Interesting. This clip just felt more like a piece of propaganda. It seemed like they were trying to suggest that there is a narrative forced upon women to be mothers and all of this, when I would actually suggest that it's the contrary. I would suggest that the narrative currently is to be like these women, to not want to have children, and for a career to be the ultimate desire. So that doesn't quite sit right with me. As for judgment exists. Judgment will always exist. Get over it. If the judgment bothers you, that probably means in yourself. You judge yourself a bit, because if you're strong in your convictions and you know yourself and you know what you want, other people's judgment won't affect you, because it will just go over your head. It won't mean anything, because it's like, okay, I know what I want. Yeah, I'm still intrigued. I want to know what the trend is here, if there is a trend, if there's a pattern between all of these women, perhaps in their childhood experiences, perhaps in their personality types, or perhaps in the kind of media that they are all exposed to. But of course it's The Guardian, so we're not going to dig that deep into it. No. Mainstream media doesn't provide much, very much surface level stories. But hey, if you want stories that go a bit below the surface, make sure you head over to my channel, go over to playlists and check out my series Debunking the Lunacy, where I do take a deep dive into various topics and areas of society that I think aren't fully portrayed through mainstream media platforms. So yeah, if that sounds like something you'd be into, definitely go check it out, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with all my reaction videos and all of the other exciting things that I'm working on, and I will see you very soon.